Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I want to show you how you can install the latest version of Keycloak in cluster mode on Kubernetes. Of course, for this scenario first you have to install Kubernetes on your machine. If you have already installed it, that's good. If not, you can watch one of my videos about installing Kubernetes on Linux. I will add that video at the end of this video, so you may use it and install Kubernetes on your machine. So let's go and let's see how we can do it. First, we go to the official website of Keycloak. So I just type Keycloak, and here, as you know, this is the official website of Keycloak. And after that, we go to the docs, documentation, and after that, we go to getting started. And here, as you see, we have different the documentation and different configurations. It depends on how we want to install Keycloak on our machine. In this case, we use this part of the documentation because we want to install it on Kubernetes. So I click on it. And here under documentation, you see that we have some configuration here. But before we go further and do these things here, I have to tell you, if you do exactly all of these configurations that you have here, at the end of that you will have Keycloak in development mode, and we don't want it. We want to install Keycloak in production mode. We want to use our SSL certificates, our data bank, and our domain. So we can use some of the parts of this configuration here, and in some of other parts or files we have to do some changes. Before we start, let me show you a very simple graph. This graph makes it easy for us to understand our job a little bit more. So as you see here in the browser, we want to access our Keycloak server under this domain. It must be a real domain, so if you have a real domain, it's good. If not, I will show you how you can use a local domain on our machine and just to be able to access Keycloak locally under a domain on our machine. So in the browser, we call our Keycloak. The request first goes to Ingress. Ingress is actually an Nginx Ingress controller and works for us like reverse proxy. The Ingress gets the request and sends the request further to the service here, and the service here send the requests to the Keycloak pods that we have here under deployment. And because we want to use our SSL certificates, we have to deploy also an SSL deployment, and we use it in Ingress and in deployment in our containers, because as you know, if you want to install Keycloak in production mode, you have to have your SSL certificate also, along with the domain name and a database. And in this video, I will use Postgres database on the local host. So how we can connect all of these things here, I will show you during the video. Don't worry, it is very easy. On the official website of Keycloak, we can get these files here, and as I said, we do just some changes here in service, in deployment, and in Ingress. And the only thing that we have to create is this SSL. It is also very easy. So it is our job. We have to do it. We go now further and we do everything step by step. The first one that you see here, the first two commands, they are Kubernetes commands. With the first one, you get a list of add-ons. So I just make a copy of that and I paste it here. And I press enter. You see that they are all of the add-ons that I have. And the second one, with the use of the second one, we can enable Ingress. I've also installed Minikube on my machine as a Kubernetes implementation for creating the cluster. As you see here in the documentation, it will be Minikube will be used also. So in my case, you see that Ingress is already enabled. So if it is not enabled in your case, you have to enable it with the use of this command that you see here. We go further, and here we have two files, keycloak.yaml and keycloak ingress.yaml. In the first one, keycloak.yaml, we have the service and the deployment together. So we download the file here. We don't create it. If you use exactly this command here, you create it, you deploy it, but we don't do it. We want to change to do some changes first in this file, and after that we'll create it. So I just copy the URL here, and we go back to the terminal. Here I change the directory to serve. It does not matter where do you want to run your Kubernetes deployments, but in order to have a little bit more order, I just use this directory. It is not very important. So we download the file with the use of sudo wget, and after that I paste the URL here and I press enter, password for the user, and if I make a list, you see that we have the first file here. We go back to the documentation and we download the second file. The second file is the Ingress file, this deployment that you see here. So we download it also. I just copy the URL and we go back to the terminal again with the use of sudo wget. I paste the URL and I press the enter, and this file will be also downloaded. So now we have these two parts here and Ingress also. As I told you, don't worry, I will do everything step by step so that you can deploy Keycloak in production mode, in cluster mode on Kubernetes also. The first thing that we do is we create a namespace for ourselves. So for our job, namespace is a workspace and we do our job in that namespace. You have to notice some of the deployment under the default namespace cannot find each other so easily, and you may get some errors because of that. And for more order, we create a namespace and we deploy all of our deployments in this namespace. So for creating a namespace, kubectl, they are just Kubernetes commands, and they are not Keycloak things. Kubectl create, and after that namespace. And after namespace, you have to select a name for your namespace. It is up to you which name do you select. In this case, I select Keycloak -test and I press enter. As you see, namespace will be created. If you want to check it, kubectl get namespaces, and I press enter. You see that by default we have some namespaces here, and it is our namespace that we just created. After that, we deploy our TLS because we want to use it in these files here. So it is better if we first deploy our TLS. We do that. So I change the directory to my certificates, and I make a list here. You see that it is my certificate and it's my private key. In this video, we use self-signed certificate, of course, but if you want to use it in your organization, so you have to use true SSL certificates. So for creating the secret TLS in Kubernetes, we use this command: kubectl create secret TLS, and after that you have to select a name for your secret deployment. It is up to you which name you use. In this case, I use my minus TLS, and after that we have to select the key. Minus key equals the name of the key, TLS that key, as you see here, and after that minus cert TLS dot cert. It is also my certificate, and after that we have to give the namespace that we have just created. It was Keycloak minus test, the namespace here. Otherwise, this TLS will be created under the default namespace, and other deployments cannot find it. So from now on, at the end of each Kubernetes command, we use our namespace. So after that, I press enter, and you see that the secret my TLS is created. So you can check it also: kubectl get secrets, and after that -n Keycloak minus test, because we want to check the secrets in this namespace, and I press enter. You see that my TLS secret is created. So, sorry, clear. The other thing that we have to do is we get the IP address of our minikube. For that, minikube IP just simply, and we get the IP address here. And the other IP address that we need is the Docker bridge. If config, I use if config, and I press enter. Here you see that I have the Docker bridge IP here, so you have to use also this IP here. Why we need these two IPs? The first one, I said you that here this domain, it must be a real domain. If you have it, so you don't need this part of the video. But if you don't have it, you need this part of the video. We want to create a local domain under the hosts on our machine, so that we can access this domain locally on our machine, and we can test it if Keycloak works or not. So for that case, we have to get the IP address of the minikube, as you see here, and the other IP address, the Docker bridge, we need it so that the services that are running on our host here will be accessible inside the Kubernetes pods and containers. And because of these two reasons, we need these two IP address. And after that, we open the hosts file on our machine with the use of sudo nano etc hosts, and I press enter, the password of the user, and here is our host. You see that by default we have some IPs and some names here. We just press enter, we create a new line, and after that we add the IP address of our minikube. In that case, in my case, it was this IP address, that 2, and here we use the domain that we want to use for our Keycloak. So for this case, my -keycloak.com. I use this domain. It is just for testing. As I said, if you already have a domain, so you don't need it. And the second thing that we have to add here is the Docker bridge, the IP address of the Docker bridge. It was this IP address that we just get with the use of ifconfig. And here we have to add docker.host.internal. With the use of that, because Minikube and Kubernetes run over Docker, so with the use of that, we can make it, as I said, possible for the Kubernetes pods to access the services that are running on our host, because I want to use PostgreSQL on the host as the database for our Keycloak. So here my domain, the IP, the URL of Keycloak, and here docker.host.internal. I press Ctrl and X and I save everything here and we go out. Now I clear here. The second thing that we do is we go back to the serve directory, make a list. We have two YAML file here. We have to change them. The first one we change the ingress here. So I open the file to do nano keycloak -ingress.yaml. I'll press enter. You see that this is the standard format of Kubernetes, of Ingress on Kubernetes. But as I said, we have to do some changes here. So I scroll down, you see kind is Ingress. Under the metadata, we have the name. The name is Keycloak, but I want to change it to Keycloak external -config, so that after deploying, I know that under this name, I know that it is my ingress is. So you can select any name that you want. It is up to you. And after that, I scroll down under expectation. You see that we have TLS and hosts. Under the hosts, by default, it's Keycloak underline host. So we give our host my keycloak.com. It was our domain. We can access it locally on our machine. And rules and host here, we have to change it again. So my keycloak.com. And under this host, we have to configure our SSL certificates also. So I press enter, make a new line. And here we have to add secret name. We just created our secret name, so we use it here so that Ingress can access our certificate. Column, and after that the name of our secret, it was my TLS. And we scroll down here, we don't do any changes. At the backend, the service, here we select a name for the service, and this service is exactly the service here that we also have in deployment. So we select a name for that. In this case, it is Keycloak. I'll change it to Keycloak -service simply. And after that, we have the port. So you can use either port 80 or port 443. These two ports will be supported in Ingress, and exactly with the use of this name and this port, here Ingress can be connected to the service with deployment. So we do these changes one more time. We check if everything is okay here. Here on the hosts, we have the our domain, and on the domain we have the secret, our certificates, and here again the host. And after that, the name for the service, Keycloak service, and the port will be 443. So I press Ctrl and X, and we save everything here. We go out, and the second file that we have to change is this file here, keycloak.yaml. In this file, we have service and deployment. So sudo nano keycloak.yaml. We open the file. You see that it looks different. Here at the top of the file, we have our service. Here on the graph, here is our service. And here we have the deployment. As I showed you, we have the deployment. And under deployment, we have our containers or our pods. Here we have to do some changes again. So I scroll up, I go to the beginning of the file. So under the metadata, we have the name. So this name is the name of the service. We have to change it to Keycloak minus service because we have select this name in Ingress. We have to change it here also so that Ingress can find it. And after that, we go down under application. It is Keycloak. We don't change it. And here under expectation, we have the ports. And protocol is HTTP, but we change it to HTTPS. And the port, we change the port also to 443. These are the changes that we already done in Ingress. So if you forget it, you can go back to your Ingress file and check it again. And under the target port, so with the use of this target port, service will be connected to the Kubernetes pods or Kubernetes containers. And with the use of this part of the configuration, our service can be connected to Ingress. So I scroll down and you see here, this is a load balancer. Each time sends the request to one of these containers that we have here. I scroll down, the kind is deployment, name is Keycloak. Here under the replicas, you can define how many instances you want to install. In this case, it is 1. I change it to 2, or you can change it to 3. It is up to you. But you have to notice if you want to install more instances of Keycloak, so you have to have a better hardware component also. In this case, I change it to 2 instances, and we scroll down. Expectation, and here are the containers. The name of the containers is Keycloak. We don't do anything here. And here is the image. As you see here, the latest version of Keycloak will be installed, so we don't do anything here also. But here under the arguments, we have the start minus dev. If we start the containers with this argument, the Keycloak will be, you will get error, and this argument is for installing Keycloak in development mode. But we want to use it, we want to install it in production mode, so we change it to start. So simply start. Under the arguments, we have the environment variables. By default, there are some variables here, so I show you what these variables are and where you can find them. We go back again to the website, to the official website of Keycloak, again to documents, and again to getting started. And after that, we go to the all configuration. Under the all configuration, you see that you have all of those environment variables for database, for everything that you want, for host name and for HTTPS and so on. So this environment variables come from here. We have to add something else here. The first one is the Keycloak admin. So after the installing the Keycloak, it will be administrator. I will change this double quotes to single quote. The second one is Keycloak admin password. The password of your admin, this admin, as I said, it will be the the administrator of your Keycloak. So I change the password to test123. Of course, that's not a good password, and you select a better password for that. proxy. So we need this environment variable also, because our Keycloak it will be installed behind a reverse proxy, so we need it. After that, for adding other environment variables, we just press enter, and we add name exactly like here. And after that, we can select the host name, for example. We need a host name also, so we go to the website of Keycloak, and here under the host name, if we click on it, host name. So I just copy it, we go back to the file, and I paste it here, but without this quote, and I press enter. The value will be our domain, my keycloak.com, and it is for the host name. We press enter, and under the host name we add another variable, again name. This one will be _underline host name, everything in capital form, underline strict, and underline HTTPS. We use it because we want to use SSL certificates, and it means that this HTTPS schema will be activated and will be used, and under the value for that we type true, and after that I press enter. We go down here, again name. We can also add a log level for our Keycloak. So we go back, and here we search for the logging, you see that here, and at the end of that we have the log level. So I just copy it and we paste it here, and the value for that will be info. You can select another log level also, but by default it's info, and we use info. Also you can use error, debug, trace, and whatever you want. So after that I press enter, and we add another variable, and this variable will be our database. We go back here and we select for the database configuration. Here you see that the database vendor, you can use one of these databases here. In this case I will use Postgres, so I just make a copy of that, and here again minus name, it will be cdb, and the value will be of course Postgres. As I said, I want to use Postgres. I press enter. So we have to add the URL of our database. We go back to the documentation, and here you see that database URL. I click on it, cdb. No, sorry, here database URL, and I just make a copy of that. And here you see that there is a example how how you can configure it. We go back to the file, and I just paste it here. Sorry, without a quote. It is a name, it is not a value. And after that, the value. So the standard value of database is that. I just make a copy of that. Again, go back to the file, single quote. So I paste it here, but here we have to do some changes. I would recommend you to delete localhost and use the IP address of your machine. In my case, it will be this IP address, and after that colon, and you have to set the port of database. For Postgres it is 5432, and here it is the name of my database. So if you don't know how you can install Postgres, I have also a video in my channel about installing the Postgres and creating the first username and the first DB. So you can use that video also, and I will add it at the end of this video here also. It will be the value, and after that we need the username and the password of our data bank. So we go back here, DB username, you see that here. So I make a copy of that, and again name. It will be this one, CDB, and the value here you have to select the username for your database. In my case, it is also Keycloak, and again name, and this time you have to select to use the environment for the password for the user, for this username, the password for this username. Here DB password. Here you see that the password of the database user. So I just make a copy, go back to the file, and I paste it here, and value, it will be test 1 2 3. So you have to set also the username and the password of your database. After that, I press enter. Another environment variable that it is not necessary, but for the integrity of data, I would prefer to use it also. And that environment variable is a name, transaction, and after that XA underline, and after that enabled, and the value must be true. As I said, it is not necessary, but I just prefer to use it. So you can add the environment for the health and for the metrics also. If we go back here under the health, you see that C health enable. I just make a copy of that, and again name will be this variable, and its value will be true. And the other environment variable that I prefer to add is the metrics for our Keycloak. You see that I make a copy of this environment variable also, add a name for that, simply paste it here, and again the value for that will be true. And I would say it's enough to use this environment variable. Of course, if you want to use another environment variable, so you can refer to the documentation and add whatever you want. So, and under the ports, the name is HTTP, and container port is 8080. It's okay, we don't change anything here. Under the readiness probe, we have to do something here. So under the HTTP GET, we have to add the schema for that. So we use, it is HTTP. So if you don't have it, so you can simply just add it here. And under the path, we don't change anything here, and the port is 8080. It's also okay. Now we have to add something here under the readiness probe, and it is the initial delay seconds. Initial delay seconds, I set 60 for that. So initial delay seconds, it means that kubelet must wait 60 seconds to do the first readiness probe. So they are just Kubernetes configurations. And after that I press enter. And we need a period second also. Period second, it means that, so seconds, I set 1 here, and it means that every 1 second a readiness probe will be done here and will be checked. But the syntax here, they must be under the HTTP GET, and the period must be also here, otherwise we will get some errors. Now we have to add something else here, and this is for our certificates, and this is the volumes that we have. So the volumes must be under the containers. So here we just add volumes. Why we use it? We want to mount our secret in the Kubernetes pods, so we need it. And the volumes, and after that we select. We have to use the name attribute for that. The name will be TLS. It is up to you which name you use here. And after that we have the secret, and I press enter, and under the secret we have to use the secret name, and it is the secret name that we used for our SSL certificate. It was my TLS. And optional, if it's optional is or not, is false. So we have the volumes here. So the volumes must be under the container, and here we have to mount it here. So I go to end of this file, and after that I press enter. So under the image we have to give the volume mount, and press enter. the name must be TLS. This name here must be exactly the name that you have select for your volumes here. So whatever you give here for the volumes, you have to give it also for the volume mount. Here, as you see that, name is TLS. I press enter again, and after that we have to select the path for that. Mount path, or we select a name we have select, and after that we select a path for that. So this path, our SSL certificates will be mounted under this path in our Kubernetes pods, and I select for that etc. SSL. It means that the certificate will be mounted here in our containers, and we have to use to add read-only also parameter. Read-only will be true. It means that the certificates cannot be written, cannot be changed. So we check one more time. So here we have the name of service, and after that the HTTPS and the port of that, so that they will be connected with the Ingress. And here under deployment we have changed the replicas, and here under the expectation we have the containers, and after that we have the volume mounts. Volume mounts is for our certificates, as I said, and the name is TLS. The name must be the name of the volume, and mount path will be mounted here. Read only true. Arguments we need just start, and admin password, and the proxy, the host name, and here I have done a mistake. For the name we don't need any quotes, just for the values, and the log level is info. The log level must be also under quotes. Sorry, I have done here some mistakes. Because of this I check everything one more time. So under the DB it will be Postgres, and the DB URL is also true, and DB username, the value will be Keycloak, the password will be that, and the transaction is true. I have typed true here. I think the true, my English language is not so good, but true is okay, and health is true. Enabled, metrics are enabled, and under the ports, name HTTP, the other container port, the container will be started under this port, and the readiness probe. Under the readiness probe we have the HTTP get, and schema is HTTP, and this is the path, the port HTTP, and initial delay is 16, and it will be also 1 second, and the volumes, name TLS, and under the secret we have the secret name here must be in capital name, and optional is false. So these are the changes that we have to do, and after that I press Ctrl and X. We save everything here. We have already our files to deploy, but because before deploying we have to do some changes on Postgres also, so that the containers or the Kubernetes pods can find our Postgres on the local host. Don't worry, it is very easy. I just show you how it is. So as you know, Postgres QL had two configuration files. So one of them is, we find this file, one of them is Postgres QL .conf. We check where the file is. This file is the primary source file for the configuration of parameter settings. As you see that in this case it is under this directory on my machine. So I open it, sudo nano, and I paste the directory here, and I give the password of the root user, press enter. Here we scroll down. As you see that here's a configuration of Postgres, and here under the connections, as you see here, connections and authentication, lesson addresses, by default it is commented out, so you have to activate. We just delete this hash, and here under the addresses you see that right now Postgres listen only to the local host, but we change it and we type and a star there. Don't worry, it does not mean that Postgres will accept any connection from any IP addresses. No, it means that Postgres will listen to any IP address. So that's it in this file. I press Ctrl and X and we save it. And the other thing that we have to do under Postgres is the other file of Postgres. We have to change that also. Before opening that file, we have to get again the IP address and the Docker bridge of on our machine. So for that, if config here, this is the IP address of my machine, and here is the Docker bridge. We need both of them, but I just make clear here, and we use those IP addresses in another file of Postgres, locate -a pg underline hpa .conf. We find the file. This file of Postgres is for the client authentication. I copy the directory and sudo nano. We open it, and here you see that here Postgres client authentication configuration file. We scroll down, and here we have some connections under the IP version 4. Here at the end of this file, I just press enter, and here we have to add the Docker bridge IP and the IP address of our machine. We type host exactly as it is, all, and after that all again, and here I give the IP address of my machine. You have to give, of course, the IP address of your machine, and the network was a 60-bit network, and here MD5. So as you know, MD5 is a protocol for authentication based on the password and the username. I press enter again, one more line, host, all, again all, and here this time we give the IP address of the Docker bridge. So in my case it is that. So if you also have installed Docker, so standard, you also have this IP address here, and it is also 60-bit. And here again MD5, again that. That's it, what we have to do. So one more time we check everything here. Here must be the IP address of your machine, and here the Docker bridge, the IP address of the Docker bridge. So I save everything here by pressing Ctrl and X, Yes, and save. After doing these changes on PostgreSQL, you have to restart your Postgres with the use of sudo systemctl stop Postgres and sudo systemctl start. So stop and start it, or just restart it. And we check the status if the Postgres is running on our local machine status. You see that Postgres is also running and everything is okay. Now we have done everything. It is the time to deploy the files that we have for our cluster. So for deploying, first we deploy the Ingress. I make a list here. You see that the files are there. For deploying, kubectl, and after that create -f, and here we select the Ingress file. Don't forget to give your namespace, Keycloak -test, and I press enter. So you see that Ingress is created, and now we deploy the other one. We may get also some errors. It's okay. We can find a solution for that error. So kubectl create -f, and this time keycloak.yaml, again under the namespace keycloak -test, and we press enter. So we have got an error. Volume mounts read only. Oh, okay. So sudo nano keycloak.yaml. Here the read only, it must be in capital. So I save it one more time. We try to create the Keycloak. So this time you see that the deployment will be created, but error when creating the service, because at the first time that I have created, you see that here service is already created, so the next time it will not be created, but it means that the service is created. And here you see that the deployment is also created. So it means we have deployed everything here. It just takes a little bit time until the pods comes up, and after that we will check how we can access them, where the pods are, and so on. But before we go further, I would like to please you to like the video, or to write your opinion to the video as a comment, or subscribe my channel. It will be nice and friendly from you. For checking our cluster, so we have two methods. Either you can use kubectl, or you can use the minikube dashboard. So first we use the kubectl get all -o void -n keycloak -test. So we want to get everything under our namespace. As I told you, I press enter. As I told you, it takes a little bit until the containers comes up, but here you see that these are the two replicas that we have created. The start is running, but it takes time. And here is the service of our job, this service, and we have selected the Keycloak service. You see that it's running here, and here is the deployment that you see here in this graph, and everything works. As I said, we have to wait until the the containers will be ready. You see that they are not ready. They just take this time. When the containers runs, we check everything. So we check one more time. This time you see that the pods are already here, and the images we have here. So it is one way to communicate with the with our cluster. The other one is the Minikube dashboard. So I'll press enter. Dashboard will be open. This is the Kubernetes dashboard. So here you see that by default the namespace default will be selected, but we select our namespace Keycloak -test, and here you see that our pods are running. Here we have selected 2 instances, both of them are running, and here some beispiel. Here, for example, we can have a look at the logs. If you select the logs, you see that the version of Keycloak powered by Quarkus, this version is listening on this IP address, and it is running. And if you want to go to Ingress, for example, you see that it is our Ingress that is also running, and it is our hosts. And under the service, we also have our service that is running. And now it is the time to access. And here under the secrets, you see that it is also our secrets that we add. If I click on it, you see that we have the certificate and the key. And the other thing that I would like to show you is if you go to one of these instances, and here click on execute. Here you open the bash of the pods, and you make a list here, and after that we go to etc SSL. I press enter, and after that I make a list. You see that our certificate and our key are mounted to the pod here, and everything works fine. We go to Ingress, and if we click on this file and this URL here, you see that we come to to Keycloak, and here if we go to the certificate, view certificate, you see that they are the certificate, the self-signed certificate that I have created. It means that it reads our certificate, and here under the administration console, we click on that. We come to the login. So as the admin, we have given the admin, and as the password test123 it was, and we click on sign in, and we will be signed into to Keycloak. And here you can do now or whatever you want, create groups, users. So it is not our topic right now, but as you know, as you see here, everything works fine. So that's it. I hope that you enjoy it. It would be nice if you comment and like the video.